I used to think that New York was the city of dreams. The movies showed its glittering skyline, bustling streets, and the promise of opportunity around every corner. But I've come to realize that beneath the surface of those bright lights lies a darkness that's suffocating, a horror that infects every inch of this sprawling metropolis. I live in a tiny apartment on the outskirts of Manhattan. The noise never stops. Sirens wail, horns blare, and the distant hum of the subway is a constant reminder that the city's heart never rests. But it's not just the noise that's unsettling. It's the feeling that you're never truly alone. Shadows dance in the corners of my room, and sometimes I catch glimpses of figures that shouldn't be there, flitting through my peripheral vision. The streets are a labyrinth of chaos. People rush past, eyes locked forward, avoiding any interaction that might slow them down. It's as if the city has stripped away their humanity, turning them into automatons driven by ambition and survival. Every encounter feels like a transaction, devoid of genuine connection. The alleys are where the true horrors lurk. Graffiti-covered walls become canvases for the darkest expressions of the human psyche. Trash piles up like forgotten memories, and the stench is overpowering. In these forgotten spaces, the downtrodden gather, those who have fallen through the cracks of the city's promise. Desperation and despair hang heavy in the air, breeding an atmosphere of palpable dread. Even the parks are not a refuge from the city's malevolence. Once vibrant green spaces are marred by discarded needles and broken glass. I've heard whispers of cult gatherings in the dead of night, where chants echo through the trees and rituals are performed under the cover of darkness. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect is the anonymity. In a city of millions, you can be lost without a trace. People vanish, swallowed by the city's voracious appetite. I've heard rumors of forgotten subway tunnels that harbor the displaced and the deranged, where the boundaries between reality and nightmare blur into a grotesque tapestry. I've tried to escape this horror. I've dreamed of a life where I can breathe without the weight of the city on my chest, where the sky isn't obscured by towering buildings, but New York has a way of pulling you back, its grip unrelenting. It's as if the city itself feeds on the fear it generates, growing stronger with every ounce of despair it sows. One particularly eerie night, as the city's neon lights flickered like dying stars, I found myself walking home later than usual. The streets were deserted, and an unsettling fog crept in, shrouding the buildings in a ghostly veil. I quickened my pace, the echo of my footsteps reverberating off the walls. As I turned a corner, I stumbled upon an alley I'd never noticed before, hidden between towering structures. The alley seemed to stretch endlessly into darkness, and an inexplicable pull urged me forward. A sense of unease gnawed at my gut, but I couldn't resist the urge to explore. The air grew colder with each step, and a prickling sensation ran down my spine. My breath fogged in the frigid air, and the distant sounds of the city faded to a distant hum. It was as if the alley existed in a realm apart from reality, a place untouched by the city's pulse. Amid the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, I caught sight of a mural on the wall. The image was disturbing, a grotesque fusion of human and animal forms, their expressions twisted into nightmarish contortions. My heart raced, and I realized with a shiver that the mural seemed to writhe and shift, as if the figures were alive. I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest, when a low, guttural chant wafted through the air. The sound seemed to come from all directions, reverberating off the walls of the alley. Dread settled over me like a heavy blanket as I strained to make out the words, feeling an ancient, malevolent power within them. My gaze was drawn to a narrow passage at the end of the alley. There, illuminated by a faint, otherworldly light, stood a group of figures. Cloaked in tattered robes, their faces were obscured by shadows, their movements synchronized in a macabre dance. They swayed to the rhythm of the chant, their voices rising and falling in an unsettling cadence. I knew I should turn and run, escape the clutches of this nightmarish scene, but my feet seemed rooted to the spot. I watched, paralyzed by fear, as the figures continued their eerie ritual. And then, as if in response to my presence, their heads turned slowly in my direction, their hollow eyes fixating on me. Time seemed to stretch, my heartbeats pounding like drums in my ears. The figures began to approach, their movements deliberate and predatory. Panic surged within me, and finally my legs obeyed, propelling me backward in a frantic retreat. As I stumbled out of the alley, the air seemed to warm, and the distant sounds of the city rushed back to fill my ears. The fog lifted, and the alley vanished, as if it had never existed. I collapsed against a wall, gasping for breath, my mind reeling from the terror I had witnessed. From that night on, the city held an even tighter grip on me. The experience in the alley had torn away any illusion of escape. The darkness that had infected the heart of New York had reached out, ensnaring me in its web of horror. And now, as I navigate the bustling streets and towering buildings, I'm haunted by the knowledge that no matter how hard I try to break free, the city's malevolence is inescapable. A nightmare I can never wake up from. Also, guys, if you enjoy my stories, please click the subscribe button. It's free, and you can always change your mind. The day started like any other in the city that never sleeps. I was making my usual commute to work, headphones on, lost in the rhythm of my playlist. But as the subway train pulled into Times Square, the bustling station was different. There was a sense of urgency, an undercurrent of tension that rippled through the crowd. People were huddled in groups, eyes glued to their phones and murmuring in hushed tones. Confused, I took out my earbuds and overheard fragments of conversations. Something about a virus, people attacking each other, chaos in the streets. I instinctively checked my phone for news, and what I saw sent a chill down my spine. The headlines were shocking, almost unbelievable. Reports were pouring in about a wave of violence sweeping across the city. People were turning on each other, attacking without reason or restraint. The word zombie was being thrown around, dismissed as sensationalism by some and taken with deadly seriousness by others. As the subway train screeched to a halt, a piercing scream echoed down the platform. I turned, and my heart clenched as I saw a man, his skin pallid and eyes vacant, lunging at a group of commuters. Panic erupted like wildfire, and the platform became a chaotic battleground. I joined the surge of people rushing back onto the train, desperate to escape the madness. As the train doors sealed shut, I stared out the window at the scene unfolding on the platform. The man was no longer alone. A horde of the infected was emerging from the tunnels, their numbers growing with each passing moment. The horrifying realization hit me like a punch to the gut. This was no ordinary outbreak. It was the beginning of a nightmare, a zombie apocalypse. My thoughts raced as the train hurtled through the tunnels. I needed to get to my apartment, gather supplies, and find a way to survive. But as the train emerged into daylight, I was met with a city transformed. The streets were chaos incarnate, with scenes of violence and terror playing out in every direction. Abandoned cars blocked the roads, their doors ajar and windows shattered. Smoke billowed from buildings, and the distant wail of sirens was a constant reminder of the chaos that reigned. The once iconic skyline was marred by plumes of smoke, and the city's famous energy had been replaced by an eerie silence, punctuated only by the shuffling footsteps of the undead. But amidst the despair, I found allies. Other survivors, each with their own stories of loss and survival, joined forces. We formed a small community, pooling our resources and skills to increase our chances of staying alive. Every day brought new challenges, finding food, fortifying our defenses, and evading the relentless horde. Time blurred as days turned into weeks and weeks into months. We held on, fueled by the hope that somewhere, someone was working on a solution. Communication was sporadic at best, but we knew we weren't alone. The city's spirit of resilience had taken a hit, but it wasn't extinguished. As the months passed, we received word of a government outpost on the outskirts of the city, a bastion of survival and hope. Our group embarked on a perilous journey, fighting off the infected and facing dangers we never thought possible. But the idea of a haven kept us moving forward. Finally, we reached the outpost. The sight of fortified walls, armed guards, and a glimmer of organization was like a lifeline. We were greeted with weary smiles and stories of survival. The journey had been long, and we had lost friends along the way, but we had made it. As I looked out over the walls of the outpost, I thought back to the start of it all. The chaos, the fear, the uncertainty, it had all been real. But so had our resilience, our ability to adapt, and our capacity for hope. The city that had been brought to its knees by an unimaginable catastrophe was still standing, scarred but not defeated. During the apocalypse, we found strength in each other, and as long as that spark of humanity burned within us, there was a chance, however small, that we could reclaim our world from the shadows that had fallen over Manhattan. New York City had weathered countless storms in its history, and this was no different. The once bustling streets might have fallen silent, but the spirit of its people endured. As we stood within the outpost's fortified walls, we faced an uncertain future with determination. We were survivors, and no matter the challenges that lay ahead, we were determined to bring life back to the city that never sleeps, even if it meant rewriting its story from the ashes of despair. Thanks for watching. You can listen to other stories here.